Idealists are people who think the world isn't as it ought to be. And I suppose an activated idealist is somebody who then has the gall to think that maybe there's something at least small that they can do to try to make things better. And if you're trying to make things better, especially now when things aren't going that great, last I checked, I think we all have a responsibility to learn as we go. And so I learned, I think, how to be more effective at harnessing the tools, limited though some of them are, imperfect though all of them are, but how to get better at sort of prosecuting my ideals over time in a bunch of different venues and incarnations, just landing at the point where I thought, okay, I get it. Now I know how to optimize. Doesn't mean I know how to fix X or Y, but learning along the way about the power brokers, what they respond to, incentives, disincentives, to try to be more effective as an idealist in this world.
I mean, how did you become an idealist?
There have been moments in my life when I was focused on myself and a very different potential career path where I was arrested, my attention was arrested with images of great injustice. And so the best example of this, I come to America as an immigrant when I'm 9, so I was just a kid, lived in Pittsburgh in 1979, arrived at the time where the Pittsburgh baseball team, known as the Pirates, were soaring into playoff glory and would end up winning the World Series, the last time they would win the World Series. Why does that matter? You might ask for my idealism. Well, I decided that the way to fit in as a new immigrant to America was to learn everything there was to know about baseball. I carried this obsession forward with me all the way through university. I got to go to Yale University, an amazingly rich academic environment, very politically progressive on campus, all kinds of causes I could have attached myself to. I had no interest. Sport. I was the play-by-play voice for the Yale men's basketball team. I did color commentary for the Yale baseball team. I was on a half-hour sports nightly talk show. This was my life. And yet one of my summers during university, as I was interning at the CBS network affiliate in Atlanta, Georgia, and as I was taking notes faithfully on an Atlanta Braves baseball game so as to cut the highlights for the sports section of the evening news, the footage from Tiananmen Square beamed in on the CBS feed that I only accidentally saw. Like if it was, me at home watching TV, I would have been watching ESPN or Sky Sport or, and yet because I was in this crazily serendipitous little glass booth where there were all of these screens, the images of students being basically steamrolled by their government, mowed over, got my attention, mercifully got my attention. And I just sort of stopped and I thought, my God, what is happening? Here are these 18, 19-year-olds. All they want to do is be able to speak their mind and gather and liberalize just at the margins. And this is what they're being met with. And so that did not make me say to myself, I'm going to change the world. And I have so many skills that are going to make that easy. And I'm so qualified. No, I thought, I need to pay a little more attention in school. I don't really know, how do those students even get there? Wait, what's happening in China again? And now, what does the United States, my adopted country, what does a country like ours do in the face of something like that? And so it was like I was hooked a little bit on current affairs, but I was so ignorant. And so when I went back to campus, I subscribed to the New York Times, which I'd never subscribed to before, nor had my parents. We were an apolitical family. And I began underlining, in the newspaper, the facts and the figures and the rough populations and who the head of state was and what the history was. And I just gradually became a more sentient, aware citizen, such that out of college, my first job was I wasn't able to get work in sports journalism initially, was as an intern. I could never find paid work, but at a foreign policy think tank. And there, the guy I happened to work for was somebody who had been a career U.S. diplomat. And so for the first time, I was actually working with somebody who'd been in the U.S. government at a very senior level. He'd been ambassador in Turkey when the United States decided to set up a safe haven for the Kurds in northern Iraq just after the first Persian Gulf War in 91. And he'd been instrumental in that. And suddenly I was with this person who didn't just know things about the world, but very quickly thought to himself, what should the United States do about it? And this was a unipolar moment. The wall had by then fallen. The Soviet Union had collapsed. And so I was just his intern, like his lackey, pouring coffee and occasionally editing articles, op-eds he had written and so forth for the newspaper. But to be around somebody who was so constructive and so determined to be useful. Now, when I was privy to what was happening in the Balkans, which was the big conflict of the moment, which you know well, I was with somebody who didn't just say, oh, how horrible, they're setting up rape camps, they're targeting Muslims on the basis of their religion or their ethnicity. Instead, he said, here's what NATO should be doing. Here's the cost to NATO being on the sidelines. Here's the cost to any potential for a new world order, at this moment of transition after the Cold War. And it was sort of exhilarating, I suppose, on one level, to just be with somebody whose idealism was so practical and was so prescriptive and was rooted in the same thing that had moved me in the Tiananmen moment of this is wrong, this is bad, but didn't pivot then to someone should do something, but pivoted very specifically to here's what that something should look like, and here's how the constraints can be overcome.